It is Thursday afternoon in East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Jim Comaparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Come on in, gather around quick. 3 and out. Got 3 mailbag questions. Going to get to those, get out, and put you on your way here on a Thursday afternoon. Hopefully the weather is good where you are. We finally have some clearing here in East Lansing. That hurricane dumped water and rain in the state of Michigan on Tuesday and Wednesday. And we had flooding on campus, or not just off campus, in East Lansing. Several students who live in apartments north of campus are without apartments now. Basements flooding. It was something. It was a situation. And those of you in Texas that had it a lot harder, we're thinking of you as well. And anyway, we got 3 questions we're going to get to. My name is Jim Comaparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. And SpartanMag.com, give us a like here on the channel and subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate that. Lets people know a little bit more about, lets people become more and more aware of Michigan State sports talk taking place on our channel. Go to SpartanMag.com. Check it out. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. $1, and you get access for a month. And right now we've got a really interesting series going on in which I project the Michigan State football depth chart. Michigan State has not issued an official depth chart since 2019. So we're kind of left at our own devices to come up with our own. Really, people don't even publish depth charts anymore, but we do, and we attempt to. It's not official. It's my projection on what the depth chart will be this fall, and I go over each player, the most recent evaluations. In the case of transfers, I go back and look to see what they did in some of the games last year and offer some analysis of where they might fit and what those position groups look like. It's a way we're hoping to re-educate Michigan State fans on the names and faces of this program. There's been a lot of changeover, and we want to assist the readers and the listeners in that regard. And also, it's an exercise that helps me become more aware of what's going on. There's some other film I need to see, like Nakai Martinez and some of these others, but took a deep dive into Luke Newman and Tanner Miller, Aiden Childs, and others. And also we looked at the spring scrimmage, looked at each one of those plays, each player, all 22 positions during the spring scrimmage. I watched every play of the spring scrimmage at least 25 times. Tried to arrive at some opinions on some of the first stringers, second stringers, third stringers, even walk-ons. So the depth chart projections, that series still ongoing. Michigan State football recruiting still ongoing. Jason Killip doing a great job covering that as well. Kenny Jordan, Jake Liskowa, Paul Konendijk. And we've got the microphone working again. Let me know if that sounds right, if it sounds better. If so, that means we are off and running. Got 3 questions going to get to today really quickly. And these were posted over at the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com. The Underground message board is the church of what's happening now with Michigan State sports. That's where all the beautiful Michigan State fans go to talk about Michigan State sports, field questions, post questions, talk about Cedar Point, talk about purchasing televisions, all kinds of things, mostly Michigan State sports. And about 2 weeks ago, I invited people to post questions. Those questions still have a long shelf life, and I'm still getting to those. Some of those are pretty good ones. They're all pretty good. Could you hear me when I said test, test, test during that cough? If so, maybe we're coming in on 2 microphones. I'm hoping just to have one, but let me check that real quickly to see what the audio situation is. Yep, audio looks like that's coming through here and not my webcam, and that's all well and good. Question number 1, Patrick from Tampa, originally from St. Clair Shores, Michigan, says, Jim, what are your expectations for the Michigan State basketball team for the season now that the roster is set? And you probably have been hearing and seeing to a small degree the development of some of the players. What is your estimation on the likely playing group come Big Ten season? Thank you. And that's from Patrick in Tampa, Florida. So let's go ahead and this is some of the video from Moneyball from about 2 weeks ago. And I went and watched Moneyball on Tuesday. And I came away with an opinion I was not expecting to have. And everyone talks about Cohen Carr and the great dunks that he has, and Xavier Booker, and Frankie Fiddler scoring 45 points, and Jackson Kohler's improved his look. and his physique, his build. That's all true. Jaden Akins, and I mentioned this on the Stout Show in Lansing earlier today. My takeaway from Tuesday, and I'll go out there again tonight and take a look at it, but Jaden Akins has improved his ball handling ability. His ball handling ability is tighter, stopping and starting. And I know there's not a lot of defense in the Moneyball Pro-Am, but it's better than it used to be. Mainly because the talent level is better because there are more Central Michigan University players there. There's 2 on each team, which really enhances the competitiveness and the defense. I'm not saying there's great defense, but much better than last year. And everybody's still putting up numbers, scoring 30 points and all that, whatever. Akins and his ball handling abilities what struck me, and I have to go watch it again. And I spoke briefly with some people on the Michigan State basketball staff, and I said, is it me or is his ball handling really improved? They're like, yeah, he worked on it, and it did look pretty tight, pretty good on Tuesday. And frankly, Akins has been an explosive athlete for a long time, a good shooter, semi-streak shooter, but a good shooter. Pretty decent opportunistic scorer, good defensive player, very good kid. Ball handling was not great for him for the guard position. When he tried to go from point A to point B with the dribble, a lot of times it would get out of sorts, and it was not great. I'm not saying he's great in that area, but it's improved, markedly improved, and that can make him a better player. I think he will be a better player, which you would expect a senior going from year 3 to year 4, Tyson Walker moving on. He'll become more of a first option type of guy. And I think he's ready to do more damage off the dribble. I think that's a big development in his game, which is a big development for this team. I went home that night saying Jaden Akins is going to be improved. He's going to be at least honorable mention all Big Ten this year. At least. So I'm not saying he's great, but he's improved. And sometimes when guys are sophomores, juniors, seniors, they hit a ceiling and they kind of stop improving, and you wonder if guys are leveling off. I was wondering that about Jaden Akins, but I don't think he's leveling off. I think he's going to take it up a notch. A major notch or just a notch, that remains to be seen. But ball handling, I've not asked him about it yet, but that's what it looks like to me. You asked the question about some observations and some takes, and that would be my first one. Other stuff that was going on the other night, Frankie Fiddler scored 45 points. I only took stats on him in the second half. Second half, he was 10 out of 17 from the field. 3 out of 7 from three-point range, and that's NBA three-point range. Now, the defense comes and goes, so it's open gym, it's loose. But he scored in a variety of ways. Now, he's a 35% three-point shooter last year at Omaha. So don't expect him to come in and shoot like Cassius Winston or Sean Respert. But can he be a 35-plus in the Big Ten? I don't know, maybe. Will he be better than Brandon Wood? I wasn't sure a couple months ago, but I think he will. He'll be better than Brandon Wood was. I'm talking about transfers in the past. Bryn Forbes ended up being great, but in year 1 as a transfer, a young transfer, he was not great. It took a while. It won't take as long for Fiddler to get acclimated to the physicality of the Big Ten, but he is a plug-and-play guy that can make some perimeter shots, do some things off the dribble, post up a little bit. He just has a good disposition about him, good body control, nice piece there, good wing. Fiddler scoring 45. They had fun with it. I expect to put video up on that over at SpartanMag.com here. And I'll go tonight also, maybe get some video. Have not put up any video yet from last Tuesday, but Fiddler was good. Akins scored 32. From three-point range, Akins was 4 of 8. The rest of the field goal stuff, he's 12 of 18, but the defense kind of comes and goes. Xavier Booker scored 31. Booker was 7 of 13 from three-point range. Three-point shot looks nice. He's added some weight. He's up over 245 pounds. He's moving well. He's always accelerated well. He's accelerating even a little better now with the dribble and with a little added mass. I'm not saying he's Mr. Muscle Man. He's not a freight train, but he looks different out there. And like I've always said, his head is screwed on straight, and he's working on his game, and you can see some progress there. Jackson Kohler has added some chest. He's lost some baby fat, which he lost some last summer, and he was working on his lateral movement, and we were wondering whether that lateral movement would translate to better defensive play. That's what he needed to do, because his freshman year, he didn't play a lot of minutes and didn't play at the end of the year that they upset Marquette and took Kansas State to overtime in the Sweet 16. Kohler was out and Carson Cooper was in because Kohler couldn't really hang defensively. So the big challenge was whether he could improve athletically lateral movement to stay on the court defensively. We didn't get an answer to that question because he had that preseason lower body injury, which sidelined him for several weeks, and then he spent the rest of the winter trying to come back from that. We never really saw the real Jackson Kohler. So now he's improved his body even more. So I'm watching his lateral movement. A lot of times he'll switch and guard a guard, which I think is good for him. He needs to do that. He needs some of those reps to guard quicker guards, and there are some decent guards in the league. There's what's the guy's name? KK Brown, Grand Rapids guy who's transferred from Division I down to Grand Valley State, and there's some good ones from Central Michigan. And, the Michigan State guards. And I'm also seeing this summer that Michigan State players are guarding each other more. The previous 2 years, it was kind of an unwritten rule that Michigan State guys didn't guard each other at Moneyball, but they're guarding each other more now, which I think is good for us as observers. So Kohler, when he gets a chance to switch onto a guard, he's doing it, and he's down, and he's working because he knows he needs to work on lateral movement. I'll be watching that the rest of the summer. But the Jackson Kohler you remember with his skills and everything, he's still that Jackson Kohler, just amplified a little bit more because he's a year older and he's more physically mature and more physically developed. He's got some strength, and I think Kohler's going to be a starter, and I think he's going to be headed toward being a plus player. Booker's headed in that direction too. Booker has a lot to work on still, not as much as last year. He's heading in the right direction. So Gary Norman scored 26 points, 5 out of 14 from 3. Still looking at him on lateral movement on defense. Not sure. He's got to prove something there. Jace Richardson's a guy I've been surprised. I continue to be surprised with him. Last year, there's a couple of those big high-profile games that he played in the national circuit, elite high school teams. And he kind of had to play off guard because one of the Booker brothers was the point guard, and Richardson is still an off guard, but he has point guard skills. I thought he was better than his ranking last year, and then his ranking rose up. Good athlete, smooth scoring ability. Just comes to him smoothly, whether it's from range or medium range or off the dribble. I don't want to compare everybody to Charlie Bell, but it reminds me of Charlie Bell a little bit, just the smoothness that he can just get buckets. And Richardson, 34 points, 14 out of 19 from the field, 3 of 7 from three-point range for what it's worth. Kohler scored 32. He had over 20 rebounds, if that matters to anybody. Cohen Carr, 33 points. He had 12 dunks. Cohen Carr, highlight reel dunker, good kid, wants to please the crowd, exciting player. That's all well and good. It's just dunks and three-pointers with him. Personally speaking, I'd like to see Cohen Carr work on medium range, shot fake one dribble, go up 16 feet. And I don't know if he needs to do shot fake because no one's coming out to guard him anyway because he hasn't shown that he can shoot. But the medium range jumper for Cohen Carr, I think, could be a weapon, and I'd like to see him work on that more. Why could it be a weapon? Because at 6'5", 6'5.5", with his 40-inch vertical plus leaping ability, his ability to stop and go straight up at 6'5", not many people in college basketball are going to be able to stop and go up with him and defend that shot. So that should be an open shot for him. And I'd like to see him work on that. I'd like to see him do that at Moneyball, but I'm not the coach. So I don't know. If I were him, that's what I'd be doing because that's a thing that can translate to his game in the regular season this year and in the future. And it's something I think he should work on and take advantage of the Moneyball situation. Those dunks are great. The kids love the dunks. But if I were Carr, I'd say, okay, instead of 14 dunks tonight, 12 dunks tonight, I'm just going to have 2 dunks, but I'm going to take 15 medium range off the dribble 15-footers. And people say that the 15-footer is gone and extinct. I disagree. I know that the Celtics just won an NBA title by shooting more three-pointers than anybody in the league. The year before, the Nuggets won the NBA title by shooting the fewest three-pointers of anybody in the league. I know that the metrics line up that way, and Alabama is among the teams that believes that. And I do think that the three-pointer is not 50% harder than a lot of two-pointers. I get that. But sometimes the shot clock's down. There's 3 seconds left on the shot clock. You're at three-point range, and they're out there defending it. Do you shoot a contested 3 because that's what the philosophy is? Or do you shot fake, go 15 feet, and take the open shot? Sometimes the open shot, when the shot clock's down, is a medium-range jumper, and I don't think it could I don't think it should be a lost art, but it's something that Cohen Carr, I think, could and should add to his arsenal. He doesn't have it right now. I said the same thing about Miles Bridges. I would have liked to have seen him work on in-between rise-up jumper because he had a nice shot release. Everybody remembers that. And he had good size and great leaping ability. I thought that the medium-range jumper is something that could have been a better weapon for him earlier in his career. But that's what I think about Carr. Kurtang, 19 points. Zappala, 12 points. Simon Zappala, the transfer from Longwood. Good body, runs okay, but just kind of, he's got talent with both hands, but he just kind of ebbs and flows. He'll do something well. It's Moneyball. People are just shooting from deep, and he tries to do that too, and that's not who he is. So you're asking the question, who's in the playing group? Let me back this up again. I will. What just happened there? You're asking about the playing group at Michigan State basketball-wise. You got 8 starting. Well, Jeremy Fears did not play on Tuesday. He was there. He was courtside. He played last week. I've not seen him yet this summer. I've seen some video. Curious to see where his horsepower is. He's never been like a high riser leaper type of guy, so not a guy that can afford to lose a lot of horsepower. He continues to work on that. He's gotten stronger, spent some good time in the weight room. So Fears is so important, and his readiness and his horsepower level is going to have a big impact on what the team can do. He's very optimistic. He's looking forward to taking over the team, and the team does need real leadership at the point guard position. Didn't have that the last couple of years. It was up and down all over the place. And the team was up and down all over the place. Fears is excited about becoming a leader and helping Michigan State get back to what they've been. He's excited about it. Izzo's excited to have Fears as his quarterback, his general, his leader. So I'm interested to see what he looks like physically, athletically this summer as the summer continues, talking about Jeremy Fears. So Fears is the presumptive starter at point. Trey Holloman is still around. He's still Trey Holloman. Plays with a smile on his face, effervescent, exuberant. He surprised me last year with his ability as I'd say a streak shooter, because 2 years prior to that, shooting was not something that he did well. Now he does it well once in a while. I've not arrived at an opinion this summer as to whether he has taken that up a notch or not. And if he does, that could help. With what happened to Fears last year, Holloman played some point guard. That was not the plan. So now that Holloman took those reps last year out of necessity, was not great for the team, but it helped Holloman. Now Holloman's ready to share in some of those point guard duties this year, more so because he had those extra reps last year. So, but I think Fears is the starter there. Akins, and I think Fiddler, those are the wings. I think Kohler and Booker start, and I think they're going to be pretty good, and they're going to continue to get better and better as the season goes along, provided they stay healthy. There's a lot to work with there. Izzo's going to be on those guys to play defense and command their space in terms of rebounding, defense, physicality, contact basketball. Contact basketball is a big part of winning basketball, and that was foreign to Xavier Booker on his way in. He's working on it. They need him to continue to get better in that regard. And he will make mistakes, and he'll come out. Carson Cooper will go in. And Cooper is still Carson Cooper, getting a little bit stronger. He still moves pretty well, but he'll be a guy that can go and play some bumper cars a little bit. McCulloch, does he get on? Does Zapala get on? That'll be a competition there to see who the number 4 guy is. Those guys are just relievers. I don't think they're impact guys right now, but need them on the roster. So Holloman is, first guard off the bench that can come in and play point or play some wing. There'll be some days when he's hot and he plays a lot of minutes and has an impact. And, Cohen Carr, impact, I think, off the bench athletically. I'd love to see him develop some medium range stuff. But when he goes to the rim and finishes, it's electrifying. But he also goes to the rim and can, finish layups in traffic. A lot of power there. Chase Richardson, smooth. Kerr Tang, strong, smooth. Richardson and Tang will be true freshmen capable of playing right away. And that's a little bit different in today's day and age because basketball teams last year were older than ever in college basketball, partly because everybody's going out and filling their rosters or fortifying their rosters at the top with junior and senior transfers. Plus, you had a lot of 5th and 6th year guys left over from the COVID era. So last year, probably less impact from freshmen nationally anytime since freshmen became eligible in the, mid-70s. That'll level off back a little bit. I think that I'm expecting a few more freshmen to have a little more impact nationwide. And I think Richardson and Tang are ready to do that. So those are the 5. That's, the starting 5, Fears, Akins, Fiddler, Booker, Kohler. That's what I'm thinking. I've not heard that from the coaches. That's just me looking at it. Coming off the bench, you got Cooper, Holloman, Richardson, Carr, and Tang. And then sometimes Zapala and McCulloch play. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll be needed. That remains to be seen how that plays out. Garrick Normand, he needs to show that he can play defense. I'm still looking at that. We'll have to wait and see. They'll have that carrot in front of him to try to work toward becoming a role guy, and he'll get some minutes early in the season. Later in the year, is he good enough to do it? Someone is, but you're not going to play 13 guys. I just listed 13 guys. They've got 13 on scholarship for the first time in a long time, and that's what I'm looking at there. All right. Let me check the comments over here, make sure that everybody's okay with the audio. Looks like we're okay there. Question number 2. Now, this one is more of an in-depth. I just kind of went in-depth with that one. This one's also going to be a little bit more in-depth. And we've already gone for 23 minutes. I spent 20 minutes on one question. And that's why this is a problem. I could just stop it right there. Probably should. Maybe I should just go one question or go quicker with 3 and outs. But I dive in too deep sometimes. I think I'll go to question number 3 right now. I'll save question number 2 for our next podcast as I try to make these more frequent and shorter. And that question came from Brandon from Fraser, Michigan. He says, can you break down, in your opinion, how the new Michigan State football coaching staff is doing and how the coaches, how they're doing, and the changes in their approach to the previous coaching staff? It's a juicy topic, right? Who have you heard is doing the best job out of the assistant coaches so far? What area would you like to see the biggest upgrade from a coaching standpoint? Great question. We'll save that one for the next time. Question number 2, and then maybe I'll get question number 3 off the comments area. And then we'll get out of here. Doing 3 and out. 3 questions and out. Question 2. From Malone Labe from Gladwin, Michigan, he says, hey, Jim, I like the way the 2025 Michigan State football recruiting class is coming together. Many mid to high 3-star recruits that the coaches really like, which seems similar to how D'Antonio and his staff built their best teams. That being said, is it possible to have a developmental program in this NIL and transfer portal era? Again, to repeat, is it possible to have a developmental program in this NIL and transfer portal era? Is it possible? Is it possible? It depends on what your definition of possible is, and it depends on what your definition of success in a good program is. Yes, it is possible to have a developmental program and do it that way, depending on how you define developmental. Michigan just went 15-0 with what some people would call a developmental program compared to the Georgias and the Alabamas and what Clemson was and what Ohio State was and LSU to an extent. Michigan did not recruit at that super high level. They used to recruit at a super high level in the Lloyd Carr days, a little bit Rich Rod once in a while. Maybe Harbaugh had 1 or 2 of those along the way. But if you look at Michigan's recruiting classes in the On3 and industry rankings, they had recruiting classes ranked number 7, number 10, number 15, number 9, number 18. Good recruiting classes, but not those, fortified 5-star packed classes that a lot of people had said in previous years that you needed to have in order to win a national championship. You needed to have like X number of 4 stars on your roster. I don't know what the numbers were. Ari Wasserman did a really interesting study on that over at The Athletic for a number of years. And Andy Staples from On3 they've discussed that in the past. And it was still, the data was still coming in on that. And certainly as Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, LSU were winning national titles, that was the case. I don't know what the number was. Out of 85 scholarship players, it was something like 64 stars, 65 4-stars, something like that. Michigan kind of bucked the trend on that last year. So in some ways, I just heard, I think I might have heard Andy Staples refer to Michigan as doing it in a developmental way on his podcast this week. So to define it that way, I don't know. Can Michigan State recruit like that? We've not seen that. Number 7, number 10, number 15, number 9, number 18. Those are average to substandard recruiting classes compared to the Georgias and the Alabamas. Might even be a little bit substandard for what Michigan has recruited at in previous years, but that would be better than Michigan State usually recruits at in terms of recruiting rankings for what it's worth. The team that Michigan played in the national title game was Washington. They didn't have any recruiting rankings near that. They had a couple classes that were in the top 20. Now they brought in Michael Penix, a big-time quarterback, as a transfer who was tremendous, and that made a big difference. Kalen DeBoer was a super coach, obviously. But in terms of a developmental program like D'Antonio had. Now, D'Antonio began as a developmental program, and in year 3, he kind of had a top borderline top 15, easily a top 20 class. That helped get some things going. And they settled in as being a program that recruited, between 17 and 25 most years. Later in the D'Antonio era, I think his very last class was down around 42. I don't think they had any 4-stars that year. That was the Darius Snow class and some others. But developmental class, can you have a developmental program in the NIL and transfer portal era? The answer is yes. Depending on how you determine developmental program. Can you win the Big Ten that way? It's 18 teams in the Big Ten now. And some years it might be harder to win the Big Ten than the national title. 2 years ago, Ohio State almost won the national title, didn't win the Big Ten. So winning the Big Ten, going to the Rose Bowl, that used to be the big goal. And it was a realistic goal. Now, winning the 18-team Big Ten is harder than it was to go to the Rose Bowl in those days. Back then, you could go to the Rose Bowl like Michigan State did in 1987 and be the number 10 team, number 11 team in the country. These days, if you win the Big Ten, you're easily in the top 5, right? And nowadays, with the college football playoff, getting into the top 12 is everything. Getting into that playoff is everything. So can you be a developmental program and get into the top 12? Yes, I think you can. Now, Michigan State, as the program gets set and heads towards maturity, I think Michigan State can recruit in the top 25 right now. Not quite recruiting at that level. But I agree with you. I think that some of these 3-stars, I've talked about it on the Underground Bunker message board over at SpartanMag.com. I've talked about it here. I look at what do they have, 13, 14 commitments? There's no reaches in there. There's some good ones. And there's some guys that I think could be 4-stars. I think the Nichols kid, the offensive lineman from California, if he were in the state of Michigan, I think he'd be a 4-star. I think he'd be top 10 in the state. I think Aiden West, the corner from Maryland, I think he looks like a 4-star. Savory, the tight end for Orchard Lake St. Mary's, like I said last week, still needs to show that he can go up and pluck it with a high catch radius on a consistent basis. I think he will get there. He used to be a guy that was focused on basketball, excellent basketball player for a state championship Orchard Lake St. Mary's team. Still getting, still developing as a football player, high ceiling at 6'5", good hands. Just needs to continue to work on that, and I think he could end up being a guy that can play at a 4-star level in college. He might show 4-star ability this fall for Orchard Lake St. Mary's. There's a couple others. So I don't sweat. I think there are some, I don't know if they're necessarily high 3-stars. I've not really looked at the ranking and where they're listed. Clarizio, the running back at East Lansing, is probably a high 3-star. Somebody, I think ESPN has him as a 4-star. But it's the 4-star recruits that bump up the rankings. And Michigan State has the highest ranked recruiting class in the country with no 4-stars. They're like, 50 or something. So there's 49 programs in the country that have at least one 4-star. If you just had 2 or 3 4-stars, they would be up into the 30s. Does that really make much of a difference? I posted about that yesterday in the bunker. Well, there's a perception to that, and that is kind of important. And would they like to go out and get some 4-stars like the defensive tackle from Howell? Yes, he's committed to Michigan. Not going to flip him. They worked on that. There's some others that they're going to try to zero in on, but this might not be the year that they have a top 30 class. But I've always said that having it, and I'll repeat this all the way till December and into February. Having a class that's ranked in the top 10, that means something. Top 20 class, that means something. You won a lot of recruiting battles. Did you evaluate well? Will you develop those players well? And these days, the player retention remains to be seen. Having a class in the top 25 means something. To me, classes ranked from 26 to 46, I've said for years and years and years, for more than 20 years, I've said I have trouble, I can't tell the difference between a class ranked number 27 and number 42. To me, they look the same. Throw a blanket on, just like when you're looking in the AP top 25. You'll see the top 25, then you'll see also receiving votes. And you look at the 26th team that also received votes, and you look at the 41 team that also received votes. Just do that during the football season at some point. 41 will be, I don't know, South Carolina, and 26 will be, Wisconsin. Is there really much difference between those two football teams? No. And is there really much difference between a 26 recruiting class and a 41? No. And you can still win somewhere in there. What you don't want to do is have a class ranked outside of the top 50. And that's kind of where Michigan State is right now for this class. I don't think it's going to end up there. But we'll see what it looks like at the end. But I've looked closely at a lot of those guys, and I don't see any reaches. It's not like these are guys they're putting in at the last minute on a hope and a prayer. They've looked closely at these guys, and I think it's pretty good. I think the quarterback, Leo Hannon out of California, I think he's a 4-star guy. He's listed as a 3-star. To me, if you told me he was a 4-star committed to Washington, I'd believe it. So anyway, can you have a developmental program in this day and age? Yes. You look at last year's top 25. Missouri's developmental program has been, they went 11-2, finished number 8 in the country. Now, Missouri's trying to crank it up now. They're going all in with more NIL money. They've been competitive in the portal. They yanked Zion Young out of Michigan State. So they see an opportunity right now to really go after something. Credit to them. But they built that team as a developmental team. 11-2. Number 11 in the country last year, Arizona with Jed Fish. Developmental program, 10-3. Oklahoma State last year, number 16 in the country, 10-4. Good program, year in and year out, developmental program. Kansas State, 9-4 last year, 18 in the country, developmental program. Louisville, number 19 in the country, 9-4 developmental program. NC State finished number 20 in the country last year, 9-4 developmental program. 23 Kansas, 9-4. 24 Iowa, 9-4. Now those teams don't have Big Ten schedules other than Iowa, so it's difficult. It's more difficult to go 9-4 in the Big Ten than it is in the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Theoretically, the Pac-12 was good last year, but some of those teams I mentioned would not get into the current college football playoff. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Louisville, NC State, Kansas. They'd be knocking on the door. Year in and year out, are you satisfied with that at Michigan State if that's where you are? No. But if you're there, around there every year, and then when you do have that 1 year or more, I mean, these coaches are planning to really compete for more than just number 18 and 19 and 20 in the country. But I think Michigan State could be an 8-4 program, and if you're 8-4 program and you kind of hang around there and you knock on the door there will be those seasons in which you've got that senior quarterback and maybe some guys come around and maybe the schedule lines up with you and boom, you go 10-2, 11-1. Even in this day and age in this schedule, I think it's possible. Not right now, but long term. The question is it possible to have a developmental program? Yes, but with these three, but it can't be with a bunch of recruiting classes that are only 3 stars, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest stargazer guy, but I think on a year in, year out basis, you're going to want to have anywhere from 3 to 8 players in your recruiting class that are 4-star recruits. That's kind of what D'Antonio did, and I think they can get there. And by the way, in terms of developmental programs, that's precisely what Oregon State was 2 years ago. What'd they go 9-3 and beat Florida in the bowl game, blew them out. I know Florida, some of their players opted out and everything, but that was a good Oregon State team. And last year they were good as well. Now, with the offense and all those things, and now they've changed gears defensively, bringing in Joe Rossi. So they're optimistic, and I think Michigan State is an interesting program right now. Those are 2 questions. Now let's go over here to the comments area, see if anyone has a question. If not, we might just go 2 and out today. Kenneth is saying hello from downriver. Kenneth Roberts, good afternoon, Spartan Nation. Andy Steele from the west side. West side of what? Detroit? Thomas Kohlberg says, hey, comp. A. Stalter says, hi, comp. So that's starting 5. You got Kenneth. You got 2 Kenneths. Got a high frequency of Kenneths today. REM reference. Andy Steele. First time we've seen Andy Steele in the starting lineup. Good to have you from the west side. Thomas Kohlberg. It's been a guy that's been in and out over the years. And A. Stalter. That's the starting 5 right now. We got Kenneth at the wing, and we got Kenneth Roberts at the point. We're going to leave it at that. Ron Armstrong. Great to hear from him. We'll have Ron on here talking about some things real soon. We got an interesting question coming up in a future podcast. Somebody asked whether Mark D'Antonio inherited a better, healthier program, or has Jonathan Smith inherited a better program? The comparison there. We will get some input from some people on that. And I've got to do a little more research on that. I know what I think. I just want to look it up to see if the data supports what I'm thinking. Aaron Mays says hello. It's great to hear from Armstrong. And we will have Ron Armstrong, Big Movie, on real soon now that I've got the microphone working again, which means I've got the soundboard straightened out, which means we can have phone calls again. And maybe we might even go interview mode and have 2 faces up here rather than just myself. I know you guys get sick of watching me. Kyle McDonald says, Tigers beating up on the Indians, and you start the stream now. Sorry about that, Kyle. So the Tigers going for 3 out of 4 against the Indians Indians had the best record in the AL for a while. Do they still? Tigers won 1-0 the other night. Then they lost in extra innings, 9-8, and then they won yesterday. So they're winning right now, getaway day. Good for the Tigers. Sorry about that. Here where I am, I've got Xfinity for now. I'll be canceling it real soon. So I've not seen the Tigers in months. I hear that Colt Keith is having a great month. Home runs, RBIs, batting 400. If Colt Keith passed me on the sidewalk, I would not recognize him. I've not seen the Tigers play. Major League Baseball, you have a problem. Keith Tunstall says, Comp, I thought you was retired. Father Time is undefeated, old timer. Time to purchase some Advil. I don't disagree with any of that. Thomas Kohlberg says, Comp, you get in the CFB 25 game. No, I'm not. My son probably will. I might pick it up and play a little bit. I've not played video games in 30 years. I'm not sure I need it in my life right now to enjoy a video game or video games because I've got enough things eating away at my time. But a lot of people are talking about it, so maybe just from a research standpoint, maybe I need to take a look at it and see what's going on and just to stay in touch a little bit. But no, not my jam. Keith Tunstall says, a lot of scrubs on that 2 unit of the offensive line. Shaking my head. Keith Tunstall coming with some strong adjectives, some agitated adjectives. And I respect his opinion. Let me look at those. And he's speaking in reference to our depth chart series over at SpartanMag.com. Projecting. These are just our projections. These are not official. And Keith says a lot of scrubs on that second unit of the offensive line. Scrubs? Well, I mean, Gavin Brocious is a sophomore that was injured last year. Is he a scrub or is he an unknown commodity? I'd say he's an unknown commodity. Stanton Ramil, injured last year. A lot of talent. Is he a scrub or an unknown commodity? He's an unknown commodity. Same thing with Mercer Lunyeski at left tackle. True freshman. Played this spring, didn't look like a true freshman, number 79 at left tackle. I think he's got a future. Is he a scrub or an unknown commodity? He's an unknown commodity. Dallas Fincher played last year. He's a known commodity, and he's a guy, not a starter. And he's probably second-string center and probably second-string right guard. Cooper Terpstra, true freshman walk-on, unknown commodity, but not ideal to have that type of person as second stringer at guard and center, and that's kind of what's going on with those guys. So at center and guard, second stringers inside with Brocious. Inside you've got Brocious and Christian Phillips competing for a starting job over there. Christian Phillips, an unknown commodity. Right tackle, Ashton Lepo starting, unknown commodity. Second string, Charlton Lunyeski, true freshman, unknown commodity. True freshman, A.J. Dennis, unknown commodity. So I'm seeing a lot of young, unknown commodities. I'm not calling them scrubs. Scrubs are guys that get in the games and just aren't good enough. I'm not saying those guys are at that level yet. It's a developmental position, and it is thin. I think they've got some capabilities in that starting unit, but injuries, like a lot of teams, there's a lot of teams that have position groups that cannot withstand injuries. It would be a bad situation, and I assume that's the way it's going to be for Michigan State on the offensive line. And we just finished looking at all 5 positions over at SpartanMag.com in the depth chart series. Thomas Goldberg says the mic sounds great. That's good to hear. We had a problem with that a couple weeks ago, but we're good. J2250cc says big mistake not hiring national champion Urban Meyer. MSU will regret. Rob South is in. Chief Bongston says, you the man, Comp. Appreciate that. MSU Detroit fan says, RIP Classic Rose Bowl. Agree with that. Didn't realize it at the time. I heard it said, but it didn't really sink into me at the time that when Michigan State played Stanford in the 2013 Rose Bowl season, January 1st, 2014, that it was the last traditional Rose Bowl. Well, traditional as we knew it. Pac-10, Big Ten. 2 champions, both top 10 teams playing each other. It was the last time. After that, we got into the college football 4-team playoff. But that's the tradition as we knew it. I mean, if you're 80 years old, the tradition was not purely Big Ten Pac-12 back in the 1940s. But, all right, MSU Detroit fan says Jace Clarizio has Michigan State, or on 3 has Jace Clarizio as a 4-star. I just looked at that yesterday, and I thought he was still a 3-star. Jace Clarizio, the running back from East Lansing High School. On 3 has him as a 3-star currently, and he's a 3-star in the On 3 industry rankings, according to this, and he's a 4-star on ESPN, unless there was an updated ranking system that just happened and it's not filtered into his page yet, so I don't know. He's got speed, and he has the ability to play on both sides of the ball, too. Big Mooby knows all about him. You've seen him on the practice field a lot. He can comment on him going forward also. Randy says, I think Smith will be a better D'Antonio, and D'Antonio is my favorite coach and best MSU coach. Wow, a better D'Antonio. That's a high standard. How good was D'Antonio? D'Antonio was better at Michigan State than Nick Saban was. Fact. Most people say Nick Saban is the best college football coach of all time. D'Antonio was better than Saban here. If Saban had stayed here for 12 years, how good would they have gotten? Probably really good, but Saban didn't have the temperament to try to do that. But fact is, 5 years, D'Antonio versus Saban, D'Antonio was better. And then the years after that. MSU Detroit fan says, I don't care if it's the Pinstripe Bowl or another one of those 6-win bowl games. It'll be a step in the right direction if we get to a bowl game. I would agree with that. As long as it isn't to the Quick Lane Bowl against a MAC team. If it's against an ACC team, I'll be fine. So MSU Detroit fan weighing in. Now, that's a Detroiter. Does not necessarily want Michigan State in the Quick Lane Bowl. And I think that's Michigan State's lane this year. No pun intended. Dude, I'd take it. Michigan State against Eastern Michigan in the Quick Lane Bowl. I don't know. I agree with you. If you played an ACC team, that'd be better. Michigan State against Virginia in the Quick Lane Bowl. Sign me up. An MSU Detroit fan. I don't want to make empty promises, but I would intend to buy you a drink somewhere down there. You can maybe name the place. If it were the old near the old Tiger Stadium, I'd take you down to Reedy's, and I'd buy you one there. But we'll see. Guardians. Did I say Indians? I'm sorry. Guardians. Thank you, Joe Brazier. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize. I'm serious about that. My bad. The Tigers should have swept the Guardians if Kente Maeda was not on the team. Yeah, Maeda just not working out. Meanwhile, what's the guy's name? Manning in Toledo? Every time he comes up to the big leagues, he does a good to the major leagues, to the parent team. He does well. I'm wondering when the Tigers might make that change. All right, what do we have here? They got the Dodgers coming into town next week, so I'm hoping they remain hot because they're going to need it against LA. Jack says, Comp, need to do some analysis of the MSU player ratings on the new game. Hopefully it motivates our guys that the Michigan guys are all getting higher ratings. Well, I mean, the Michigan guys, they won all their games last year, and they've recruited well, and they've got a lot of future NFL players. It only makes sense that they'd be rated higher in a video game. Yeah, I'd be curious to see, where they have some of these players rated. And, I mean, it's kind of all over the map. It could be anything. I think Nathan Carter's pretty good. I think Nick Marsh is pretty good. Everyone knows Jack Velling's pretty good. What do you do with Parachek? Second string tight end? Good questions. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. We're not going to sit here and pontificate all day and all night. We're trying to keep these things shorter and have more of them. I'll count all those comments as part 3 of the 3 and Out. Maybe that's what 3 and Out will be. 2 questions, and then we go to the mailbag, the live mailbag. That's what we'll do. So some of those questions I'm already looking at for future SpartanMag Lives. I never got the Twitter out. I'll post it right there. But we're just wrapping up. But they can go back and watch it later. Anyway, that's going to do it for SpartanMag Live for this afternoon. Got out in under 45 minutes. Well, almost 45 minutes. Shooting to make these be like 20, 25 minutes. Maybe we'll get to that point at some point. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Maybe we just go one question in the future. But I want to call it 3 and Out because it's a football term and we're part of the On3 network. But I don't know if I can handle it. I start talking too much. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. If you're just joining us, go back and watch it. We'll no longer be streaming live. You'll be able to catch it. Go back and see what we were talking about. It's good to have you here. So go give us a thumbs up, a like. We really appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel. Go to SpartanMag.com. We really hope that you'll consider becoming a SpartanMag.com subscriber. $1 gets you a month. Check it out. Got the depth chart series going on right now. And also, as always, the Underground Bunker message board, the daily narrative on Michigan State sports. Go over there. Check it out. Have fun with it. We'll see you next time. Hope everybody has a good weekend. If I'm not back here real soon with another one, we want to do these more on a regular basis. Like I said last week, I was planning to do some at a remote location, outdoors. That was the plan, but the headset I had did not have a wind guard on it, and it did not work. Early next week, I'm not going to be available. Maybe I'll do one this weekend, maybe another one next Friday or so. But Spartan Mag Live, keep your eyes open. We'll come back with the 3 and Out here real soon. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next time.